think we're ready to get started. Welcome everyone to day 3 of reInvent. It's great to have all of you here. Thank you to all of you for attending this session, to all of our Gen AI developers, data scientists, and enthusiasts on our session on multi-agent collaboration. I'm going to start off by asking for a show of hands. How many folks in the audience have tested on agents, maybe created agents, or even deployed agents into production on any of the industry solutions? Oh, wow. Okay. A spattering of hands. I think maybe I saw about maybe a quarter of the folks. So regardless of the solution that you've used, we know the process for creating agents through creation, testing, optimization, debugging, deployment, and scaling can often be a challenging one. Today, we're going to introduce to you how Bedrock agents makes the single and multi-agent creation process easy. We'll review some use cases. We'll review design patterns. We'll do a couple of cool demos, and we'll wrap it up with an exciting customer case study. Hi, everyone. My name is Michael Liu. I am the product lead for Bedrock Agents. I will be joined on stage by my principal architect counterpart, Mark Roy, and our great partner, Heiko Zerker from Northwestern Mutual. Together, we'll show you how Bedrock makes the multi-agent process easy to use and how Bedrock can help you transform your entire business flows. So we're excited to get started. Now, I've met a number of you throughout reInvent in the past couple of days, and the most frequent question I hear is, what is Bedrock? What do you guys do, right? So I want to take a quick minute to talk a little bit about Amazon Bedrock and what it's about. Amazon Bedrock is a fully managed service that offers a broad set of high-performing models from leading industry model providers, including our own very own 1P solution, 1P model, Nova, that was recently announced yesterday. Bedrock provides easy-to-use interfaces to import custom models on top of our platform and to customize models, to distill models, and to fine-tune them so all of you can better fit your bespoke customer use cases. We additionally offer Gen AI tools, things like knowledge bases, retrieval augmented generation for knowledge bases, for capabilities like guardrails to safeguard against misuse and abuse, Bedrock flows that allows you to deterministically chain together prompts and invocations and tools to deliver an end-to-end solution. And of course, my favorite topic, Bedrock agents. All of this is underpinned by enterprise-grade security, privacy, and data governance on top of AWS. My team and I, we're all working very, very hard to ensure that Amazon Bedrock is the easiest way to build and scale to all of your generative AI needs. So let's talk about agents. Let's really get into it. Now, you may have heard a lot of industry buzz about agents. What are Gen AI agents? The topic has certainly been at the forefront of news lately, and I'm guessing this is a large part of the reason why all of you are here. How do we differentiate agents against other Gen AI capabilities? We define agents as intelligent systems that are designed to operate autonomously to achieve a goal. So agents leverage large language models to interact with end users. They're capable of planning, reasoning, and acting, and kind of dynamically execute multi-step workflows. When many of you build agents, we've spoken to many of you and learned about your use cases, you grant them access to enterprise data systems, things like documents, wikis, databases, so on and so forth. You also configure agents to use tools to do things like search the web, access enterprise APIs, have ability to retain memory and context, and of course, guardrails to safeguard your agentic workflows. So to drive the point home, let's take a look at some of the most common use cases that you've told us about. From engaging with many of you over the past several months, These are some of the most common use cases that we've seen. So certainly, you deploy agents for doing things like analyzing large sets of data for things like investment and medical research. You've told us that you use agents to process hundreds or even thousands of documents on a daily basis and across mortgage finance, insurance, healthcare processing, things that agents are uniquely equipped to do. So we call that some of the undifferentiated heavy lifting to augment your existing human teams. We've seen agents used to plan trips or even create marketing campaigns across diverse, synthesize data across diverse data sources to perform root cause analysis and offer insights, right? Really extract those insights for your analysts and business leaders. Of course, the contact center agent, the customer service agent has become ubiquitous, and the customer experience is improving each and every day. So what are we doing in this space? What are we offering on top of Amazon Bedrock? Our goal in the Bedrock team is to deliver the ability for agents to amplify the productivity for businesses and knowledge workers through the deployment of these generative AI agents. We look to deliver the most capable, the most cost-efficient, the easiest to use, and the safest and the most secure agentic creation solutions on top of Amazon Bedrock. Since our last re:Invent, when we first launched Bedrock agents into general availability, we've seen a tremendous outpour of customer enthusiasm, and thank you for all of that. The demand and enthusiasm has been overwhelming and has come from every facet of industry, from financial services to healthcare to travel, manufacturing, energy, technology, and so on and so forth. We're really blown away by the demand and the interest. Along with the enthusiasm, you've certainly told us your pain points, how we can better serve your use cases and better overcome some of the challenges that you face on Bedrock agents. And let's take a minute to talk about that, the things that you are asking us for. So the top 3 things we found are, number 1, help me automate my complex workflows. Your use cases are diverse and multifaceted, and they span across multiple use cases in multiple industries. More and more agents are being called upon to migrate from simple use cases to more complex use cases. And this requires multi-step reasoning, tool use, advanced orchestration to control groups of agents to achieve complex goals. So that's certainly one of the things you've been asking us. Number 2, you've asked for help to move faster. We understand that today's development cycle for agentic creation can be really time-consuming across the entire lifecycle for agentic creation, testing, debugging, optimization, scaling, and so on and so forth. And these often require teams of Gen AI developers and data scientists such as yourselves. But significant expertise is still very much needed in this space to do all of those optimizations and to scale from prototypes into production. So you've told us you wanted to move faster. You wanted out-of-the-box ready solutions, and not all of you necessarily have the time to devote to lengthy development cycles. And the third point that you've asked us is robustness and reliability and more scalability. You're looking for robust end-to-end solutions from development into production. You're seeking ways to manage change. So for example, when underlying business processes change, if you have an agentic solution, you have to upgrade those. When underlying foundational models get upgraded to newer model versions, you want those things to be managed much more easily. So we've heard you, and this is one of the big things we've been focusing on in the past year, and I'm happy to introduce Amazon Bedrock agents. This is why we built Amazon Bedrock, agents on Amazon Bedrock. We're delivering the foundational building blocks for customers to go and create their own agentic applications. On Amazon Bedrock, customers can choose from a variety of leading foundational models. They can access foundational building blocks. We call these agentic primitives, things like memory use, knowledge bases, guardrails, tools and action groups to help you customize to your unique workflows. And we deliver the capability for customers when you're developing and prototyping to go through the trace and to debug and the observability capabilities in order for you to see what's going on to better optimize your agents. So these are some of the foundational capabilities that we're providing. And I'm happy to announce that we launched multi-agent collaboration into preview yesterday. This is a capability that our CEO, Matt Garman, referred to in his keynote. Multi-agent delivers the additional set of capabilities to orchestrate complex tasks using a group of agents. And this is something that we're going to get into more details about. So why are we focusing on multi-agent workflows? Maybe I can ask for additional help from the audience. Maybe show of hands again. How many folks have orchestrated multi-agents using other industry solutions? If you experimented with multi-agents, please raise your hand and let me know. Okay, I see a couple of smattering of hands. This is certainly encouraging. So why are we introducing multi-agents? Many of you have told us that single agents are reaching the scale and scope of problem-solving complexity, the ability to address complex problems. So when we see agents scale more into monolithic agents and take on more roles and responsibility, they decrease in their task success, their accuracy, and the overall goal success of the entire workflow. This is a very common design pattern that we've seen in the past. So many of you have told us that you organically have evolved into a multi-agent workflow where you have groups of specialized agents and you chain them together and orchestrate them using a supervisor agent. And in this evolution, you've told us that orchestrating between multiple agents has been challenging, right? There are a number of competing solutions, comparable solutions in the marketplace that you have used. And what you told us was that you wanted a managed solution that combined the ease of developing single agents with the problem-solving efficacy of orchestrating multiple agents. This is the solution we built on Amazon Bedrock. Our multi-agent solution enables more complex problem-solving. So our internal testing has shown that with a multi-agent setup, our customers are able to break down their workflows into groups of specialized agents and orchestrate between them. And that improves the problem-solving accuracy, scalability, and resiliency. Many of you are also part of distributed teams. So you're leveraging other agents that your coworkers or your partner teams may have built. So this increases the ability to reuse and composability of this group of agents is certainly an additional benefit. And lastly, on Amazon multi-agent collaboration on Amazon Bedrock, we're delivering the same trusted security and privacy that you've come to know and love on top of AWS services. So how does our solution differ from maybe comparable solutions in the marketplace? We believe that our solution on Amazon Bedrock helps you orchestrate and develop teams of agents that can dynamically respond to new and novel tasks. So on top of a managed service. And to get more into this, I'm happy to introduce my colleague, Mark Roy, to really deep dive on some of the architectural patterns and show you a very exciting demo. Mark.
All right. Thank you, Mike. What an exciting time for builders. I've been doing this for over 3 decades, and it's pretty shocking because I'm only 29 years old. But in my experience, I've seen nothing like this in terms of the pace of change, the pace of breakthroughs. This week alone, we've got 24 different product launches from Bedrock. And all of them, the reason it's exciting for me as a builder is now I can have more impact and do it even faster. So it's pretty amazing. Of all those announcements, what's my personal favorite? Anyone want to guess? Yes, multi-agent collaboration. So we had our CEO stand up on Tuesday, introduce multi-agent collaboration. So my name is Mark Roy. I've been with AWS for 7 years. I'm a principal architect with Amazon Bedrock. I've been doing that for 2 years. And you may have heard of Roy's Law. Roy's Law says that every Gen AI month of experience is worth 1 year. So I'm updating my resume. I have 24 Gen AI years of experience. So when we talk about multi-agents, it comes from some real experience here. So what's exciting for me is we're going to dive deep on all of the capabilities here of multi-agent collaboration. And I'm pretty confident that the folks in this room are going to make 2025 be the year of agents. We'll see what happens here. So for the next 15 minutes, I'll take you through multi-agent collaboration in Bedrock. I'll explain how that all works and then give you a demo. So in working with hundreds of customers over the last year, I see a typical journey that customers are following. So they want to try out their very first agent. The tools are there to make it really easy. So they tackle some internal productivity use case. And in the example we have on the screen here, let's build an HR bot, and it can take care of vacation management, sick time, and so forth. So build an agent, leverage some existing resources, maybe databases, microservices, wrap that with a few tools here, get your vacation balance, get your sick time, book some time, and so forth. Very successful. There's a lot of excitement. So they build version 2. Let's add in an HR knowledge base. Bedrock makes it easy to build fully managed knowledge bases, incorporating all your HR policies. And now employees can not only manage their vacation time, but they can look up and get easy answers to HR questions instead of hunting all over their internal websites and wiki pages. So why not go to version 3? Hey, we've got leave of absence capabilities. It's really frustrating. We've got teams that have to answer all these calls. Why not make it self-service? Let's add that into this HR bot. And this can keep going. And there's the problem that Mike alluded to. You start putting too much into a single agent, and you're really asking for trouble. What kind of things start happening are the following. Your coding starts to get super complicated. So you were trying to make life easy, and now as you try to make sure that things are working and that all the right tools are getting invoked in the right order, it starts to get really, really a bear. What else happens? Your agents get confused. LLMs are amazing, but if you ask them to do too much, you're really asking for trouble. If you look at our best practices blog post, one of the very first things we say is keep agents small and focused. So does that mean you should only go after small problems? If you stick with single agents, I think that's where things land. The third piece is your agents start to get slow and expensive. And why is that? 2 reasons. Your prompts start getting really long because you start baking in all of these extra checks to say, hey, if you run into this situation, try not to do this, or did you remember to do that? It gets very long, and you have to start upgrading to the best model you can find. Typically, the best models you can find are slower than the other models. So you've got 2 things fighting against you. So what we see customers do is start taking our advice and keeping agents smaller and more focused. Wonderful. Let's see where that leads us. So same example, and we say, you know what? Let's make 3 separate small agents, and we'll have knowledge bases attached as well. So customer is asking, so the employee is managing vacation time. They go to this time off app, uses an agent, and all's good. When they need to manage leave of absence, they've got that covered as well. But it's not in one agent, it's in multiple apps. When they want to look at promotion guidelines, what are the things they need to do to get to the next level, that's handled in a 3rd app. So you've got some benefits now, and things are accurate. They're working quickly, but you're not quite there yet. Single agents are still siloed, and they're still limited. you see the experience we just showed is very splintered. Maybe that's okay for employees. It's probably not okay for your customers. You don't want to offer that experience. You want to bring it together and have a consistent, unified customer experience. What else happens, and we've seen this with many customers, is you start to try to do multi-agents on your own. You figure, hey, I've got these small focus agents. Maybe I just build my own little framework here. I can figure this out, and maybe you can cobble it together. Maybe you can get a few engineers going, spend a few weeks, and now you've got another thing that you're managing and trying to get to work. And don't forget worrying about scaling and security and maintenance as well. The last piece is you really haven't solved game-changing solutions. When you hear about multi-agents, you hear about the vision of tackling some of the hardest problems that you can imagine. You're not going to do that with single agents. You need to take advantage of multi-agents. So where does that bring us? Here's what we're delivering with multi-agent collaboration. Number one, easily assemble a set of smaller focused agents and knowledge bases. Number two, you've got a supervisor agent that can plan and execute across those without you having to write all kinds of code and logic to make that happen. It's as simple as assembling those, giving it some instructions, and you're good to go. Third one is unifying conversations across agents. We have a built-in intent classification. So it does high-speed, low-latency routing to the right subagent for scenarios that we'll talk about in a minute. Observability across flows. You can see what subagents are being called, not only the overall steps of the process, but the sub-steps. And you can even do multi-level hierarchies. So you could have an agent that has some agents that each have some more agents. And then lastly, this all comes with security, with guardrails, privacy, all of the things that you know and love with AWS and with Bedrock and with Bedrock agents. You get that with multi-agents. OK, so the thing that I'd like to leave you with in terms of where multi-agents fit in is two big opportunities. Number one, unifying your customer experience. How many of you are frustrated by working with some of your own service providers in your own personal life? When you try to manage your mortgage, when you try to deal with your insurance claims, it's a pain it's a pain for everyone. You've either got phone calls, multiple systems, a lot of frustration there. Multi-agents can help you solve that and delight your customers and get them really loyal to your brand. The second one that we'll talk about is automating complex processes. Multi-agents is uniquely positioned to go after game-changing processes. So let's look at the first one, unifying the customer experience. So you remember this slide from a couple of minutes ago. We've got focused agents. We built separate apps. Not a bad solution, but let's blow that up. Instead, let's replace it with a supervisor that has a set of collaborators. And here you have a multi-agent solution. So now your users are able to ask any set of questions. The supervisor immediately routes to the right place. The user doesn't have to worry about going into separate applications. And they can have seamless conversations across any of those capabilities. This is a major breakthrough. And we've seen that. You saw Rocket Mortgage, maybe, in the keynote today with Swami. The CTO there, Sean, was explaining this exact type of capability. So in your business, you can now offer this kind of game-changing breakthrough for customer experiences. Your customers can get a one-stop shop access to interacting with all aspects of your business or multiple businesses, because you know who they are, you know their multiple accounts, you know what they're trying to do. Why not simplify that and make a real breakthrough? And we have built in this optimized routing to make that happen. How does the routing work? It's pretty simple. So you take a few collaborators, you create an agent that's a supervisor around those, and you set one flag. So there's a flag that says, what type of supervisor are you? In this case, we'll make it a router supervisor. You make a brief description of the scenarios of when you should be using each collaborator. And then when you invoke your agent, this built-in optimized router does intent classification without you having to write any of that code. So a user makes a request to the agent. That context goes to the router. The router makes a decision. Done. And that's sub-second. If you build this on your own, you're probably going to end up doing an orchestration loop that might take 3 or 4 seconds. And you've got to build that yourself. Here, it's under a second. You can pick which model you want to use to do that routing, by the way. And here's some examples. How much vacation do I have left? The router automatically picks the time off specialist. Then you can continue that conversation. Can I use it next week? Sure. It routes it to the same subagent and keeps that conversation going. And then you ask a question that cuts across multiple subagents. What is the router going to do now? So does my leave of absence affect my promotion? Hopefully not. In this case, it says, well, I can't just pick one agent. That's not going to work. So it says, OK, I'm just going to be a supervisor. I'll make a plan. I'm going to go talk to the time off specialist and talk to the promotion expert and then give back an answer. The second piece is automating complex processes. So here, instead of sort of basic interactions with single tools and fairly simple capabilities, here we're saying, give me a complete marketing strategy for my new product. And here's a little description of the product. This is something you could never build on your own using traditional approaches. Here, there's a new way to think about problems. Decide what roles and experts and specialists you need. Build out small focused agents for each of those. And then add a supervisor on top of it. And then you can hand a very complicated request, a set of tasks, and ask the supervisor to get that done. What does it do? It comes up with a plan, a multi-step plan. It might have some parallelism. It might have some sequential steps. It can do iterations. And then it executes that plan and delivers the result. It comes back with a 10-page document, let's say, with a marketing strategy. And this is going to help your human teams do a lot of the sort of either more mundane pieces or maybe help augment a small focused set of experts by having some automation here. And then when it goes to execute the plan across agents, a little bit more detail here. It comes up with that plan. It starts executing. Let's do step 1. Step 1 is it asks a subagent to do something. Just like you would ask an agent, you give it a text input. It's coming up with what it should ask. It asks the subagent. The subagent makes its own plan. You see step 1.1, 1.2, 1.3, and it can do those in parallel if it needs to. When that comes back, the supervisor can move on to step 2. Maybe it'll decide that it needs to adjust its plan and move on to a different place, and then it can do step 3 and so on. This is all possible today with Bedrock multi-agent collaboration. So now, if the demo gods cooperate here, I'll show you a demo of the unified customer experience, and we'll see how it works. Just to set the stage, let's imagine we are working for Octank Mortgages, and we're going after building a new mortgage assistant. So before Amazon Bedrock, we've got customers calling in with long wait times, frustrating voice menus, heavy call center volume, and they're having to use simple websites with limited transactions. With Bedrock, we're building a mortgage assistant that can handle 3 things. One is dealing with existing mortgages. The second one, dealing with the new mortgage application process. The third one, answering general questions. And with that in place, they're now able to get great answers with very little effort, a lot quicker, It's flexible, it's personalized, and you're getting relief for your call center as well. And it's extensible. If they decide to go into another business or another area, they can add another subagent and extend the conversation. OK, now let's see if we can make this run. I've got my handy mouse up here. I'm going to just kick this off and then talk to it. We'll see how that goes. So this is a simple example with a Python Streamlit app. It's a mortgage assistant, and I'm asking, hey, when is my next payment due? And for how much? So instead of clicking through a set of menus and trying to find that information, and maybe it's not exactly available in the format you want, here you get to make that request directly in English. And it chooses a collaborator. That collaborator has a set of tools. The collaborator picks the right tool, invokes a get mortgage status, and comes back with an answer. It tells you the payment due date, how much it's going to take. And you can ask follow-up questions, like how many payments do I have left before this mortgage is done? And it comes back with the answer. 72 payments, it's going to be complete June in 2030. And then I remember, hey, my wife's been bugging me. Why aren't we refinancing? Aren't interest rates down? What's your problem, Mark? So I can turn to my mortgage assistant and ask a very complicated question. Tell me if you've ever seen any customer experience that lets you do the following. I'm saying, what's my current rate? What are the rates for new 15-year fixed mortgages? And is there a big enough difference to make it worth refinancing my mortgage? This is a complicated question. I can't even really do that myself. But what does it do? It comes up with a 3-step plan. Get the current mortgage rate for my existing mortgage, get the new fixed rates, and get me some general advice from the knowledge base, pull that together into a cohesive answer, and it ends up doing all of those steps in parallel because there's no dependencies. It executes that in parallel, figures out the answer, and now I can get my wife to stop bugging me about refinancing. It says that I need to really consider it because I'm at 8.5%. I could be at 6.4. And if you're more than maybe 1% to 2% advantage, it's probably worth digging deeper. So it asks me if I want to dig deeper. I decide, well, I'll come back to it. 2 more questions. I'm also buying a new vacation condo to go skiing in the White Mountains. Not really, but maybe if I get that promotion that we talked about. So I check in on that status as well. Here I'm using multiple different business units. I say, did you get my employment verification doc yet? My HR department says that I've sent it, and it picks the right subagent. The subagent looks up the information, checks the status, and it's able to find out, hey, that's still missing. You better go back and check on what's going on. So it knows the status of your documents, what you've uploaded, and so forth. Final question. Hey, if I lock in today's rates for my application, what's my payment going to look like? So you could hard code some very complicated calculation here. Instead, the subagent has a code interpreter attached. It's able to figure out I can get a more accurate answer if I just generate this little piece of Python code and run it. LLMs are notoriously bad with math. Here we use a code interpreter to get the right answer. And that's just a simple flag to turn on code interpreter on a subagent. And with that, I think that's the end of this demo. And I'd like to introduce Heiko Zerker from Northwestern Mutual, who's going to talk about how Bedrock Agents has been working in his business. And let me make sure that you are ready to go. I knew that was going to happen. There we go.
There we go. Thanks, Mark. Yes, my name is Heiko Zerker, and I'm a principal architect at Northwestern Mutual. If you're not familiar with us, we provide financial planning services, wealth management, and insurance products such as life and long-term care. When GenAI went viral, we immediately recognized the value and the potential of it and fully embraced the technology. And it's amazing to see how this technology has evolved over the last 2 years, and it's still changing rapidly. We have taken many use cases from the experimentation stage into production, and today I will be talking about one of them. But let's first look at, somebody's laughing. Let's look at why we decided to build this on Bedrock instead of building it ourselves. And up here on the screen is a quote from a coworker, and it pretty much sums it up. There are a lot of really awesome tools and libraries out there to build your own GenAI applications. And a year ago, you had no choice. Now you do. Now you can spin up a simple RAG use case in minutes versus spending hours or days on it. Also, we already use AWS. We know how to manage fine-grained access controls. We get built-in encryption. We get HIPAA compliance, something that's really important to us. We do most of our internal developer support through chat. And that doesn't always provide the best user experience, but also not the best experience for the support engineer. We could have long response times, especially over weekends or the holidays. We get many questions that are fairly basic, and we have documentation already available for it, but nobody bothers looking at it. Or we get a lot of requests for something that we can easily automate, such as unlocking users. So this was a perfect use case for GenAI, when all of a sudden we can give an application the power to understand what a user wants. Earlier this year, I had the pleasure of leading a really awesome team to create a pilot application for this. And we started our work in earnest in June and were in production by September. Now we can answer support requests within minutes without support engineer engagement. Our support engineers now have the time to focus on the much more complex issues. And it's great for the company, but think about employee engagement. It's even better for that. We also wanted to create a foundation for much more complex business-facing applications. And as you can imagine, doing that in a regulated industry can be quite challenging. GenAI applications can get very complex very quickly, as Mark explained, especially when you do multi-agent orchestration. Let's look at our flow. We have a chat message coming in. Then we have to determine the intent of what the user wants. It could be that a request is outside of the skill set of the bot. It could be that the user is starting to get frustrated. Or the user is asking to escalate to a human. At that point, we escalate to a support engineer. Could also be that a user starts with "Hi team" before they even explain their problem. Or we ourselves send out an announcement in the support channel, and then we simply ignore the message until there's something actionable. If the request is within the skill set of the bot, then we have to figure out which agent to use and then invoke that agent. But we're not done yet. LLMs can get super chatty. They try to be really helpful. Sometimes they're a little bit too helpful, and provide a response that is either not good or it hallucinates. So we analyze the response from the agent, make sure it is helpful, then we send it back to the user. If it isn't, then we escalate to a human. We have implemented 5 distinct agents so far with a very specific area of responsibility. Might be providing documentation, doing user management, repository management, analyzing pipeline failures, or evaluating the other agents that they provided a helpful response. And as Mark explained, we had to use multiple agents because we don't want to cram too many actions into one agent because they start getting confused. So spread it out over multiple agents, but then you have the problem, you have to orchestrate, you have to deal with the complexity with dealing with multiple agents. And I'm really happy to be able to start using multi-agent collaboration soon and simplify our code base. Another problem we had are the strict internal rules we have what AI can and cannot do. For example, AI is not allowed to take any direct action. Now, of course, if you have agents and you want them to do actions on behalf of the user, that's a little bit of a problem, right? Somehow we got to get that human in the middle. So we sat down with our risk partners, we collaborated with them, and came up with a solution that's actually sustainable long term. And the way we have resolved this is the agent responds to the user with the exact actions it's going to execute and asks for an explicit confirmation, yes or no, to proceed. LLMs, they are pretty smart, so if the user responds with like, yeah, sure, or yeah, it's a positive response. But we couldn't accept that. We couldn't have that ambiguity. So we really limited it down to a yes or no answer, and that then allowed us to move with agents into production. We also implemented what we call virtual agents. They're not written in Amazon Bedrock. We just handle it in the prompt and in the code itself, just for special cases, like the escalations and ignoring of messages. That is definitely something that will be moving into Bedrock agents as soon as we start moving towards multi-agent collaboration. So how does this all come together? I write a very vague problem description in the chat. Hey, I can't enter Git. The bot says, I can probably help you with this. Give me a little bit more information. So I say, hey, I'm actually logged out. Here's my ID, and the agent says, hey, I got you. I can unlock your account, specifies the account, and asks me, then, hey, can you please confirm with a yes or no so I know that I can proceed? Of course, I'm a smart aleck, right? I respond with, yeah, sure. The agent is not having any of it. It reminds me very nicely that it wants a yes or no response from me. I give it a yes. It goes off, unlocks my user account, and we're done. No support engineer involvement needed at all. One of our main design goals, architecture-wise, was to not have any infrastructure that we have to manage. So we said, hey, let's use as much as we can serverless technologies and managed services. We use SQS to make sure if there's a problem on the back end, we queue the messages. We have our orchestration layer, which is written in Python and runs in Lambda right now. We will be replacing this with multi-agent collaboration. We use DynamoDB to manage the state of any escalated messages. And then within Bedrock, we use a lot of the components. We rely very heavily on guardrails to protect us. We do any necessary masking of potentially PII information, other confidential information, or what happens, sometimes the user accidentally posts a password in the chat. We also have it protect us from any malicious intent or anything that is not appropriate to be managed in the chat. Cross-region inference is something we switched to, and you have to use this right now. It is super easy to implement, and you get the power of multiple regions. It added a lot of stability and performance to our solution. And all you have to do is provide a different inference profile ID, and you can use the power of multiple regions. Of course, we use multiple agents. They call Lambda functions that then in turn call backend APIs to take the actions they need to do. And then knowledge bases will leverage OpenSearch serverless as our vector database. Let's take a look at what happened when we had a chat example earlier. So the chat message comes in, it hits our orchestration layer. Then it has to call an LLM to find out what the intent is. Of course, this is protected with a guardrail. Once we get the information back which agent we need to use, in this case, it's the user agent. The orchestration layer then calls the user agent. Again, it's protected by guardrails, does any necessary masking or blocking of the requests if necessary. And then through action groups, it calls the Lambda function to unlock the user. The request comes back, goes to our orchestration layer. It calls our evaluator agent to make sure the response was actually appropriate and helpful, and then gets sent back to the user. Our evaluator agent was a really good addition to our solution. Again, LLMs trying to be super helpful, sometimes a little bit too much. They hallucinate. They might just simply provide an unhelpful answer. And this really helped us filter that out from the users, because you don't want to provide a bad user experience. And up here on the screen, you can see both a positive and a negative example of when we were filtering out these messages. We learned a lot of lessons since we've been doing this. It always comes back to the data, and GenAI is not any different. You have to have well-curated documentation. Otherwise, your knowledge bases are not going to work very well. It still holds true. Garbage in, garbage out. Cross-region inference, there is no excuse not to use that from the start. All you need is a different inference profile ID, and you're off to the races. You got multiple regions, and it adds so much stability. Anything you do with models, make sure they explain their decisions. That's going to make your debugging life so much easier. Again, we can't say this often enough. Limit the number of actions you assign to agents. Otherwise, they get confused. And that number up here is actually wrong. It's well more than 3 to 5 actions nowadays. I think it's well past 10. Keep noise away from your users. Keep the hallucinations away from your users. It's much better to provide a good user experience. And we over-index on filtering out messages. Yes, we do get a lower response rate from the bot, but that is okay. A good user experience is so much more important. Because once you lose the trust from your users, it's really hard to get that back. And then observability is key, right? You have to have observability for your system to make sure if there are any technical issues, or also any interactions between the LLM and the users. You have to have a good feedback mechanism to make sure the information is still accurate. We also had a case that our user behavior changed. Initially, we did not have an agent to analyze pipeline failures, but we saw a change in user behavior, and we had to do this. Multi-agent collaboration is going to change so much how the development looks like. It will make it so much faster. It will make it so much simpler. There's just so much benefit to this. I can't wait for our solution to move over to a multi-agent collaboration and see how it simplifies our code base. That's it for me for now. I will welcome Mark back on the stage.
Thank you, Heiko. Amazing. Always my favorite part of every session is getting a real customer to tell us exactly how they're getting a benefit. The lessons learned were great, Heiko. Thank you for that. OK, who wants to see another demo? Anyone? Sorry, I didn't hear that. All right, OK, great. We talked earlier about unifying customer experience. Let's move to automating complex processes. This is kind of the holy grail of agents and multi-agents. Let's take a look at how this works. We've got a new scenario for you. Another business unit within Octank, one of my favorite companies. Brand new marketing business, a startup advisory. So it's a new service that helps startups create a marketing strategy and come up with new campaign ideas and implement those campaigns. So it's a big business, and people love it. The demand is through the roof. There's a problem. We've only got a few experts on staff. They're amazing. That's why everyone loves this service. But now we're getting so much business that there's no way we're going to scale that. We're having to turn away business. This is not a good thing. We need to scale to 10x somehow. Let's use multi-agent collaboration. So with multi-agent collaboration, we're going to kickstart the process of onboarding a new startup, coming up with initial research, coming up with an overall strategy, an outline, some of the key points, brainstorming some campaign ideas, drilling down into the best campaign ideas, and coming out with an overall report that you can hand the maybe slightly more junior team to use as a basis, and then the expert can sort of jump in with a few hours here and there instead of a dedicated couple of weeks. So what does that look like in the solution? Here we've got a startup advisor is the supervisor, and it's got a set of collaborators. In this case, a lead market analyst, a chief strategist, a content writer, the creative director to give feedback on that content, and finally, a formatted report writer. This is how you design multi-agent systems. You define a set of experts. You give them a role. You give them instructions. And you add them into a collaboration or a team. In this prototype, this demo, I actually added a quick component, a set of tools, a simple set key and get key to act as working memory across all of these collaborators. Simple Lambda wrapper on top of DynamoDB. And now each of these subagents can save information along the way and retrieve information that's already been determined in order to share state really effectively. Let's take a look at how that works. So here, the project description, in this case, let's come up with a marketing strategy for flying cars, a new service. And we hand it a set of detailed tasks that we want the supervisor to handle. And let's watch how it works. So it's going through the tasks, and it's invoking, it comes up with a plan, and it actually uses a number of the collaborators. The collaborators do their work. They use various tools, web searches, access internal data, and they're saving information along the way, the market research, the strategy draft, the campaign ideas, copy for each campaign, and so forth. And you see the content writer created a draft of a detailed campaign report. And now step 6 is let's do iterative revisions of that detailed campaign. Let's see what happens here. So it goes into a loop with the content writer and the creative director working as a team, taking a draft, giving feedback, incorporating feedback, making a new draft until it's got the right score, the right completion level of quality. And then lastly, the supervisor has the formatted report writer retrieve all the information that was produced along the way and make a polished report to hand to the team. Let's see it in action. I'm going to start the demo here and talk you through some of it. OK, this is the trace output from running the Startup Advisor. I'm first showing you I spit out the prompt that we're sending to the supervisor. It says, here's a set of tasks I want you to do. Little detail about each task. Task 1 is do some research. It gives a little hint about what kind of research. Task 2, come up with a creative marketing strategy, and so forth. And then at the end of the task list, we remind the supervisor, hey, make sure you've gotten all the expected output before you give back your final answer. And off it goes. It says, hey, let's go step 1. Let's use the lead analyst to do the research. So it hands a detailed request to that analyst. Please come up with research about flying cars. Think about the demographics of the target market, high net worth individuals. Look into the market for this. Are there competitors out there that we should be worried about? And save all of this into working memory. So what does it do? It comes up with a few steps plan. It does some things in parallel, some in sequence, and it moves on to step 2. Here it's creating the marketing strategy. It takes all of that research as input, maybe uses a knowledge base, let's say, to figure out the kinds of things it wants to do inside of the strategy. Moves on to step 3, generate some campaign ideas, and so forth. We also gave it instructions to say, take the most promising campaign idea. In this case, it's a campaign called The Future Is Yours. And flesh out that most important campaign idea. Come up with a detailed campaign report. Talk about metrics. Talk about the timeline. Explain the value proposition of that campaign. Come up with the way you're going to pitch that to customers. So it does all of that work. Eventually, it says, hey, report writer, take everything you've learned, come up with a final report, because we need to hand this off to humans and make something interesting about it. So it's able to look up all of those underlying details and make the report. Now, let's see the next step, if I can get the clicking to work here. What are the odds? And voila. OK, here is the output. So we created this supervisor with 5 collaborators and gave it 7 things to do. It did all of that without any involvement. And this is what it produced. Here's the flying cars marketing strategy in markdown format. This is ready to go as output from this supervisor. It's got a table of contents. It's got an executive summary. It's got details about campaign ideas, goals. And we've got the 5-minute timer ringing here. So it talks about the market size. It talks about competition. All of that is captured in this output from this overall process. So you can imagine, this is an interesting example, but you could think of maybe investment portfolio analysis. You could think of processing insurance claims, maybe helping your developers to speed up their work, right? To create demos or to generate code, maybe generate agents. Why not use multi-agents to generate multi-agents? You can do that. And it keeps going. So lastly, let me show you a little bit of the code. Here, we've got a few files. I'll just scan them pretty quickly. This is a YAML file declaratively defining the set of 5 collaborators. You give them a name, you give them a role, simple set of instructions. And then for the supervisor itself, you define the collaboration type, in this case, supervisor as opposed to router. You list the collaborators. You give a little description of how they're supposed to collaborate. When should you use them? That's it. That's the definition of agents right there. And then let's move on further. Here we're showing a YAML for the tasks. Remember, there were 7 tasks. Each task has a name, has a description, expected output. And what we do is we hand that list of tasks to the supervisor and say, go. Now let's look at the main Python file. Here we're opening up the YAML, instantiating the set of 7 tasks. We're creating a web search tool based on an existing Lambda. We're describing what action does it have, what parameters does it take. The agent's going to use that to figure out what to do next. And then we've got that working memory tool that I talked about. We've got a set value, and we've got a get value. Each of the collaborators has access to that. And with a simple instruction from the supervisor, hey, keep track of working memory, that's all I had to do. And now we instantiate the agents, 5 different collaborators, and then I make a supervisor, give it the list of collaborators, and that's pretty much it. The next line of code is to say supervisor.invoke with tasks, and voila. There you are. Eventually, you print out the result, and you're good to go. How about a round of applause for this demo? OK, with that, let's have Heiko and Mike come on up here as we wrap up. So what's the call to action? Get your cameras out. This is a QR code here. This will get you an open source library of Amazon Bedrock agent samples. So plain old single agents, as well as a new set of close to a dozen multi-agent collaboration examples. For free, you can get the mortgage assistant, the startup advisor. There's even a sports team poetry multi-agent collaboration, all important. Please give that a try. You can chat with a mortgage company, plan a trip. There's an energy one in there. There's a DevOps. It's all good. So we'd love to see you kicking off POCs, doing some prototypes, and most importantly, we want to hear from you, not just in the future, but feel free to grab us. We'll be outside after this. Happy to stay as long as you want and talk all about agents. So with that, thank you very much.